The dim glow of emergency lights flickered across the steel walls of the abandoned Weyland-Yutani research facility. The air was thick with the scent of decay and something else, something alien. Dr. Evelyn Carter moved cautiously through the corridors, her pulse pounding in her ears. The transmission they had received hinted at a biological breakthrough, but what she had found was far worse. The station was silent, save for the distant hiss of escaping steam and the occasional drip of some unseen fluid. Her team had discovered the first signs of life in the main laboratory. The glass containment units were shattered, their occupants missing. Data logs showed references to a xenomorph and detailed notes on its life cycle. She scrolled through the last recorded entry, her breath catching as she read. Subject is in final stage, highly aggressive, uncontrollable. All personnel evacuated or presumed dead. Mayday! The log ended abruptly. A rustling sound from behind made her spin around, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The ceiling vents gaped open like the maw of some great beast. Something had come through here, and whatever it was no longer confined. She swallowed hard and pressed on. The first signs of the nightmare had been found in the lower level. The walls were lined with strange, organic material, a grotesque fusion of biological and mechanical structures. She crouched beside a cocoon-like form, her gloved hand trembling as she brushed away the thick mucus strands. Inside was the skeletal remains of a crew member, his ribcage shattered outward. Facehuggers. The term leaped from the research logs into her mind. The initial phase of the Xenomorph Lifecycle. These spider-like creatures emerged from large, leathery eggs, their sole purpose to find a host and implant an embryo within. The victim would remain unconscious, seemingly unharmed, until the second stage, when the Chestburster violently emerged. Dr. Carter exhaled sharply, forcing herself to remain calm. She had studied extraterrestrial biology, but nothing had prepared her for seeing it firsthand. The remains of the facehugger lay nearby, its withered husk a testament to its single-use function. She stepped over it, wary of the pulsating eggs littering the floor. One of them twitched. A sound, wet and slick, echoed from the corridor ahead. She turned her flashlight toward the noise, her stomach nodding. The bodies of the crew were there, some still entombed in resin, their faces frozen in a silent scream. But one cocoon was empty. The telltale signs of something having forced its way out were unmistakable. The Chestburster, the second stage. It began as a small, worm-like creature, barely the size of a human forearm, but it grew rapidly. Within hours, it would shed its skin and take on its adult form. That meant whatever had emerged from this cocoon was fully grown now. She heard a distant shriek, followed by the unmistakable sound of claws scraping metal. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. It was still here. Dr. Carter turned back, retracing her steps. She needed to warn her team. The xenomorph was unlike any life form humanity had encountered. It adapted, it learned, and it hunted with lethal precision. Even now, it was likely watching her. The sound of something dropping from the ceiling made her whip around just in time to see a shadowy figure move within the darkness. It was taller now, its elongated skull gleaming under the dim emergency lights. Its exoskeleton was sleek, biomechanical, its body a perfect instrument of death. It had reached the adult stage, the third and final stage. She froze as its eyeless face turned toward her, sensing her presence. Its second set of jaws quivered within its maw, tasting the air. It knew she was there. Her pulse skyrocketed, every survival instinct screaming at her to run. But she was rooted in place, transfixed by the sheer horror of its presence. Then it moved, a blur of motion in human speed. She barely had time to react before it was upon her, its clawed hand slashing through the air. She dove to the side, rolling against the cold steel floor as the creature screeched in frustration. She scrambled to her feet and bolted down the corridor. The lights flickered, casting long, grotesque shadows as she ran. She knew she had to reach the control room. If she could override the security protocols, she could vent the station's atmosphere and suffocate the xenomorph. The pounding footsteps behind her grew louder. It was toying with her. The xenomorph didn't simply kill. It hunted. It was a perfect predator, born from its host but evolved into something far deadlier. She reached the control room, slamming the emergency lockdown panel. The doors hissed shut just as the creature reached them, its clawed hands slamming against the reinforced glass. Dr. Carter stumbled back, gasping for air. The creature let out a low hiss, its elongated fingers tapping against the glass. It knew she was trapped. It had all the time in the world. Her hands flew over the control panel, bypassing security protocols. She initiated the atmosphere purge sequence. A warning flashed across the screen. Oxygen depletion in 60 seconds. The xenomorph cocked its head, as if sensing the shift in the air. It shrieked and slammed its tail against the glass, cracking it. 50 seconds. Dr. Carter felt her lungs tighten as the oxygen levels dropped. The xenomorph thrashed, its instincts telling it something was wrong. It clawed at the walls, searching for an escape. 40 seconds. The lights flickered again. Something moved in the darkness beyond the creature. More shadows. More movement. Dr. Carter's stomach dropped. There wasn't just one. 30 seconds. The xenomorph outside the glass was no longer alone. Another form slithered from the ceiling, its sleek, black frame blending seamlessly into the shadows. Then another, and another. 20 seconds. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The research facility hadn't been abandoned. It had been overrun. 10 seconds. The xenomorphs let out a chorus of shrieks as the air thinned. Dr. Carter's vision blurred, her fingers struggling to stay on the panel. 5. The creatures slammed against the glass. Cracks spread like spiderwebs. 3. The world darkened around her. 2. A final, piercing scream filled the room. 1. The screen flashed. Oxygen levels critical. Atmospheric purge complete. The last thing Dr. Carter saw before darkness took her was the xenomorphs, writhing in desperation. And then silence.